Welcome to What's the Story Dublin, the official Dublin City Council podcast with me, your host, Deirdre Malumbi. This podcast deep dives into the work of all the moving parts that make up Dublin City Council. It also shares news of the Council's latest initiatives and exciting events. In today's episode, we're looking at parks. I'm joined today by Les Moore, who is City Park Superintendent, aka Head of Parks, Biodiversity and Landscape Services here in Dublin City Council. Les, you're very welcome.
Thanks, Deirdre.
Can you tell us, first of all, Les, just a little bit about how you came to work for Dublin City Council and a bit about your current role?
Well, I suppose I came through UCD. I did a Bachelor of Agricultural Science in horticulture, and I remember when I was leaving college, I had an option to do a Master's in Urban Town Planning, but I actually took up a job with Dublin County Council at the time in the Park Service. So I've been working in parks ever since, with Dublin County Council, South Dublin County Council, Dún Laoghaire, Rathdown, and 14 years ago I came to Dublin City Council, which is obviously the premier authority, as we like to think.
Brilliant. And with all those years of experience, you're the perfect person to talk to today about all things parks, biodiversity and landscape services, aka parks. So firstly, Les, can you tell me about how many parks is Dublin City Council actually responsible for?
Well, it's difficult to put a number on it because, at the end of the day, what is a park? There's lots of open spaces that people consider to be their local park. So look, we've well over 100 parks, open spaces around the city of different dimensions, from very small urban pocket parks that you'll come across in the city centre to your neighbourhood parks, neighbourhood kind of community parks, which are in each kind of neighbourhood throughout the city. And everything up to, obviously, St Anne's Park, which is the largest Dublin City Council park in the city between Raheny and Clontarf. And that's the biggest park we have that Dublin City Council has. And
how much land does the council oversee, if you can kind of quantify that, if that's even possible?
Yeah, it's about 3,000 hectares.
Wow.
Yeah, so somebody said we're the biggest farmer in Dublin, but so we have lots of acres that we look after, and we manage it. And look, it's different types. We've got woodlands, we've got river valleys, we've got amenity grasslands, and we have the nature reserve as well. So it's a real diverse mix of landscape types, and each landscape type requires a different type of maintenance.
And it's worth mentioning as well here that there are so many different types of parks and green spaces that you guys cover. You mentioned there, for example, the woodlands, but also you guys are in charge of playgrounds, pitches, beaches and cemeteries, things that people might necessarily realise all come under the Parks Department.
Yeah. Well, we're responsible for all the kind of green assets, I suppose, that the City Council has. And it does include Dollymount Beach, which is part of the nature reserve, and Marion Beach, which isn't such a bathing beach really, but so Dollymount would be the main one we look after. But obviously there's lots of old burial grounds in the city, which are lovely little parks in their own right. So we maintain those. And we also do floral decoration within the city centre. So we decorate the city for visitors and people who live and work in the city.
Actually, can we talk a little bit more about that? Because I know that greening the city is a big project that Parks is involved with. So can you tell me a bit about what exactly that entails and whereabouts in the city people can see that kind of taking place?
Well, a number of years ago, we set about putting a park strategy together for the city. And at the same time, we were doing a tree canopy, a tree study, I suppose, of the city in terms of how much tree cover there is. And what we discovered from that, which we kind of probably knew anyway, is that the areas outside the canals are pretty well, they have good tree cover and pretty well served by parks, but there's a real deficit of green space, quality green space and tree cover within the canals. So we set about carrying out a greening strategy, particularly of the Liberties area, and a very old traditional part of the city, but very limited green space there. And from that plan, which we launched in 2017, we've developed two new parks, Bridgefoot Street Park, which is kind of has won a number of international awards actually. A Weaver Park as well on Cork Street, and we've another plan for another park in a number of years' time in Pimlico. So 3 new parks have come out of that greening strategy, plus we've done multiple interventions on street and wherever there's an opportunity to take out hard surface and to plant trees, put in greening, and I think it's made quite an impact there. We extended it then to Stony Batter and to the northeast inner city as well. So over the last number of years, we've opened up about 3 hectares of hard surface, which we are now maintaining as green space. So adding another 3 hectares to our portfolio. But yeah, no, it's just trying to make those interventions, because we know from research out there that, you know, people, whether you live in the city or visit the city, that, you know, having access to green space, to good facilities, and being close to nature is really important for people and the livability of those particular neighbourhoods. So look, we're still working on those. It's ongoing work, but we're gradually extending that now outside of the city centre to a place like Cabra, and we're going into Tenters. We're going to be looking at Drimna and Crumlin and places like that. So we're gradually building up our expertise. I'm modelling different techniques in terms of how you do the actual greening, and we're learning from that, and we're able to use that in other parts of the city.
Brilliant. I'd love to get into, Les, just a little bit more about what Parks does in terms of kind of those everyday activities. How would we see Parks operating in terms of operations, I suppose, those everyday things that people might not be aware of that we'd be responsible for? Well,
you know, we have 5 parks districts that more or less align with the area committees, the political divisions within the city, and they're managed each by a district parks officer, and each of those would have a team of staff, and we maintain all our parks by direct labour. We use contractors for some smaller open spaces and for roads and other more incidental areas, but all our parks are maintained by direct labour. So we have a really good team of staff who are supervised by gardeners. They are the supervisors. They have horticultural qualifications, so they really take an interest in what they do. And I think that's evidence out there by, you know, people would know their local park and probably interact with the local staff, and that's a really positive relationship that we have, and we get feedback from them as well. So the most successful parks are where we have that linkage with the community.
And there is so much going on in terms of maintenance. You know, there's tree pruning, there's street trees, tree trails, etc. made. So yeah, can you talk to me a little bit more about that? And yeah, just about that community element that you mentioned, and that bond that is formed kind of between the people and the parks and the public, all those spaces coming together.
Well, I think we've noticed since COVID, you know, during COVID, a lot of services in City Council were closed down, but the park service was operating as normal as best it could, because the parks were the place where people could go out and use. So we were really busy. Our staff were out there and working and really busy all the time through COVID. But what we found after COVID is there was a much better acknowledgement of the value of parks and being close to nature, and an appreciation of that. And from that, a lot of more local groups have set up environmental groups. So in parts of the city where they were never those kind of environmental groups, they're now set up and they're active. There's volunteers active, looking to improve their locality, and they're working with our staff in terms of doing that. So I asked my guys for a list of all the groups we're working with. I have 2 sheets of different environmental groups out there that are working with us to look after the city, to care for it in terms of the parks and biodiversity. So that's been a kind of a positive thing that came out of COVID, I suppose, the kind of silver lining, really.
Les, you must be reading my mind, because next I was actually going to ask you about, just the environmentalism aspect and biodiversity. Can you talk to me a bit more about how that's incorporated into the Parks Department and what we do? And I know that's something that probably you could, dedicate an entire episode to talking about with all the Parks does, but even to give the listener kind of an idea of what you guys do in that area.
In terms of maintaining parks, is it?
Yeah, in terms of kind of addressing, environmental concerns and biodiversity and incorporating that into the park spaces.
Well, there's been quite a change in the last number of years. We were one of the first local authorities to cut out the use of glyphosate, which is a chemical herbicide which got a lot of adverse publicity in the US. But look, we made a decision to cut out the use of that, and we've done that, and we've adapted. We've our mowing regimes for our parks has changed quite a lot. So we see a lot more wildflower meadows, even on roads or in parks as well. And that's been difficult in some places, because we'd have some communities where you'd have people saying, "Oh, we want more wildflower meadows," and then when we let the grass grow, people are saying, "Oh, you're not maintaining the place." Yeah. So there's a bit of information sharing there to be done, but broadly speaking, I think that's been well received. So we've made those kind of changes, and as well as we do tree planting where we can as well, and using native species as much as possible. So we're trying to adapt to the climate change agenda, and obviously green spaces are hugely important for carbon sequestration, and trees as well. And look, a lot of our colleagues in engineering as well are looking to accommodate sustainable drainage measures, so we work with them in terms of designing up pilot schemes to see how that can work best, both on a streetscape and also in a park or open space. So we're working with our engineers in relation to a lot of those kind of sustainable drainage measures.
And it's worth noting that the full title of your department is Parks, Biodiversity and Landscape Services. So I was hoping to ask Les if you could speak to us a bit more about landscaping. What exactly does that entail? What is the work of landscape architects?
Well, our team is made up of landscape architects, horticulturists, we've an arborist, we've other people with arb qualifications, we've ecologists. So our team is made up of people from a natural science background. But our landscape architects are, we've a number of them. Well, they're working in operations as well, but we've a lot of projects that we're doing. So in addition to the kind of the greening works, we've quite an extensive capital program. So new parks, upgrading existing parks, developing recreational facilities within those parks. So tennis courts, pavilions, astro pitches for football training. So there's a whole range of things that we're trying to do. And, we've even, in Bushy Park some years ago, we developed paddle courts, which is a sport which has come in to Ireland. We developed the first public paddle courts in the country, and now we're going to do that on the north side of the city in the next 2 years. So we were trialling new things as they come along as well. So our landscape team are implementing projects which are of a wide range, really. I suppose we also have a lot of historic parks where, we've parks from the Georgian period, the Victorian period, the Edwardian period. And so we've done conservation studies of each of those. We know what's worth restoring in those, or what's worth conserving. But we're also looking to make interventions. So we're, developing tea rooms and public toilets. So our conservation studies influence or inform any new works that we might want to do in those parks. So we're both conserving and looking at how we can adapt parks for the future.
See, this is what I love about the Parks Department. As you go deeper into it, you realise just how much you guys do. And you also organise some major events during the year. I know the Rose Festival is a particular highlight for me anyway. But could you tell us a bit about some of those big events that Parks organises? Well,
the Rose Festival is kind of unique in that it's completely organised by our own staff. And it's an annual event in St Anne's Park over a weekend, bank holiday weekend in June. It was based around the Rose Garden initially, but it's become much more of a family-friendly festival, and horticulture is still a big part of it. But it's amazing the numbers of people who visit and really enjoy it, and everything is free. So it's a great event, but what makes it unique is it's completely organised by our own staff. Like we host a huge number of other events in our parks, particularly Merrion Square would host a lot of events, St. Anne's as well. But we have other parks as well host events. Some of them are just local community events, but other events are major city events like the International City of Literature Festival and Taste of Dublin as well as in Merrion Square. So we have a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah. And now that we're looking to the future, actually, what do parks have in the pipeline for 2025 and beyond? Are there any projects that you're particularly looking forward to?
Well, we've a lot of projects in the pipeline, yeah. So
that you're allowed to tell us about.
Well, last year what happened during COVID, Stony Batter was the subject of a lot of antisocial commentary, and we decided that we would take that over and manage it as a park, develop it as a park and manage it as a park. So we did the planning process last year, and this year we hope to commence that project, so undertake the work, probably opening in 2026, I'd imagine. But that's going to be a really exciting project. So it's going to be like a whole new park in the city, and we've upgraded the park in Ballymun, the town centre park there. That'll be opened in April. We're doing work in Finglas and Kildonan Park. That's phase 2 of that is underway. We're adding to Bridge Street Park, which has been a great success. We're adding a lot of new facilities into that. Upgrading Diamond Park. Diamond Park the last park we opened, really great success there in the middle of Sheriff Street. And some of the play elements, we had a bit of a fire in one of the play elements, so we're replacing that. And so look, there's lots of stuff going on. It's that'll be another podcast.
Sounds like we have so much to look forward to, Les. I suppose my very last question would be, are there any other kind of aspects or responsibilities that kind of falls under parks that people might be surprised by that, say, we haven't kind of really addressed today?
Well, we manage our burial grounds. We have 1 or 2 burial grounds that are still active, so we still deal with burials. There's not too many in the year, but we are developing columbarium walls in one of our cemeteries as well in Donnybrook, which is going to be the first as a pilot. And if that's successful, we can roll out columbarium walls into other old burial grounds that we have, which is really interesting that you'll be able to, we can, do burials in the city again, and it rejuvenates those parks. It brings an income in as well, which is useful for the interpretation and management of those parks. Look, we've major concerts in St. Anne's Park and Fairview Park. That's developed over the last few years. That's really exciting. New acts coming on this year. Work with MCD on that. Yeah, look, there's lots of stuff going on.
Brilliant. I think that's such a lovely note to leave it on, Les. I know we have only scratched the surface now when it comes to all the parks as we kind of were mentioning throughout this podcast, but we're going to have you back at some point. For now, anyway, thank you so much for speaking all things parks, biodiversity and landscape services with us today, Les. Thanks so much. Thanks again to today's guest, Leslie Moore. I'd also like to extend my thanks to our audio engineer and editor, Robert Fay. This podcast was produced by myself, Deirdre Malumbi, and Michael Ryan, and recorded in the Central Library Studio. Be sure to spread the word if you're enjoying What's the Story Dublin, and to like and subscribe for future episodes. Slán go fóill.